Hi everyone, Tasnim here. I'm so happy to be guest designing at the classroom. Today we'll be looking at a watercolor technique. It's an easy technique but a fun one. This technique works best with outline images like these stamps. So far I have applied this technique on flower images, but today I wanted to try something different. So I'll be using this fish image from Altenew's origami set. I will also be using 140-pound weight watercolor paper, which I have cut slightly larger than my intended card base as I'll be trimming it afterwards, some clean water, and a round tip brush. Before I start watercoloring, I will first secure this piece to my work surface using some washi tape. This will prevent the paper from warping as the water dries. I'll secure all four sides and leave these in place until everything is complete and the paper is completely dry. Now I will stamp the fish image using a very light colored ink. Here I'm using Distress Ink Antique Linen, and I'll be stamping it randomly at different places. The reason I'm using a very light ink is because I don't want the outline to be prominent and I want it to look as if I drew it by hand. Next, I'll be painting the bodies of the fishes using just clean water. So here I am dampening the surface and making sure there will be enough water to move the pigment and spread it around once I apply the color. Notice also that I am painting all the way to the edges, as the color will go only up to where the water is. Next, I'll be using Distress inks to apply the color. So here I have Burnt Door, Mustard Seed, and Spice Marmalade. So I'm taking some of the Burnt Door and just dabbing my brush at one of the corners. Next, I'm taking some of the yellow and dabbing it at another corner. And lastly, I'm using the Spice Marmalade and dabbing it at the third corner. I'll repeat the same process for all the fishes. So first I'm painting with plain water and then applying the color at the three corners. Notice that I'm not spreading the color with my brush. I'm just letting the water do its job and the pigments are spreading by themselves. I know it doesn't look that pretty at this point, but once it all dries, it really looks great. You can try this using one color or multiple colors as I'm doing here. It will be interesting to see how colors of different families will blend. Okay, I noticed that some of the corners were dry, so I went back and added some red pigment to those corners. Now I will leave this to dry, and it takes quite a while. I think I came back after about half an hour, and once it's all dry I will go back and paint the fins and the tail. So here it is all dry and nice. Notice how the colors have blended and there are some areas of white highlight, which I really like. So now I'll go ahead and paint the fins. The reason I did not do it before is because if I try to do that, all the colors would have blended together, including the color from the body. I wanted to have a clear edge between the body and the fins, so that's why I waited until the body area was dry before I painted in the fins and the tails. So the same technique again, first painting with clean water and then applying a dab of color at one of the corners. And I'll be repeating it for the tails. And here I'm using yellow. For the fins I used red and orange. And just like before, I will repeat the same process for all the fishes. It's really fun to find out how the colors dry afterwards, and every time it comes out differently. So once I'm done coloring all the fins and the tails, I will leave this alone until everything is completely dry. Once all the fins and tails are dry, I will go ahead and add some blue color for the water. Here I'm using Distress Ink Tumbled Glass. First I will dilute the ink using plenty of water. So the more the water you use, the lighter the color you'll get. And using this diluted ink, I will apply a light wash all over the place, going around the fins and tails. Notice that I'm not being too careful about covering every single spot. I'm just going for a subtle look with a hint of blue in the background. Here I'm adding a little bit of darker blue in some random places, so I'm using less water this time. I decided that I wanted more blue in some areas, so I went ahead and added some color in various spots. And once again, I will leave this alone until the background is completely dry. Now that this paper is nice and dry, it is ready for stamping. I'll be stamping a flourish on this fish using a negative mask. I created a mask by first stamping a fish on a post-it label, and then I cut out the fish using a craft knife. Here I'm removing the backing sheet and placing the mask over the fish to cover the surrounding area. Next I will stamp this flourish using some black pigment ink. I'm using VersaFine Onyx Black here. And now I will carefully remove the mask. I want the sentiment to say you are one of a kind, so I'm using this one of a kind stamp from a Hero Art set and the You Are portion of a larger stamp from Altenew's Label Love set. So first I will be stamping the You Are stamp using the same black pigment ink on a piece of white cardstock. And now I will trim the You Are part. In order to cover the white edges of the label sentiment, I lightly touch the sides to the surface of the ink pad. Now I will stamp one of a kind above the fish and then glue You Are on top of it. I trimmed this down to 6 inches by 3.5 inches, and all that is left is to attach this to a card base. I hope you enjoyed this technique and give this a try. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.